So welcome to Northern Powerhouses, our business success stories series of interviews where we discuss with local business leaders, their backgrounds, their successes and challenges, and what's really driving them forward. And today we're delighted to have with us Pete Hughes as the CEO at Leeds Autism Services. So Pete, firstly, thank you for spending the time with us today. And if you'd like to introduce yourself and Leeds Autism Services and how you help people, that would be great.
Thanks, Chris. I'm Pete Hughes, Chief Executive. I've worked at Leeds Autism Services though for over 20 years now, so I didn't come in as a senior manager. I've sort of cut my teeth there.
Yep.
What we do, the main part of our charity, our business, is providing direct support for autistic adults.
Yep.
Mostly on a one-to-one basis, every now and then on a two-to-one basis. We do group work as well, but people come in with a one-to-one staffing ratio.
Yeah.
Because of those high sort of staffing ratios, we tend to work with people who are either at high risk in one sense or another, or they've tried to be supported at less specialised settings and it's not worked, or people who've been in or at risk of going into some kind of crisis in their lives. So we tend to work with sort of the more complex autistic people. The other sort of part of the charitable work that we do is focused around education, promoting inclusion for autistic people and neurodivergent people.
Right.
So we do a lot of work with businesses.
Yep.
On making their businesses more accessible and for autistic people. Do quite a lot of sort of consultancy work around employment and autism with businesses. So we've worked with Leeds Bradford Airport. We've just done some work with the Transpennine train route building scheme that's happening at the moment. We've done some work with Eastgate Job Centre in Leeds. Done some work with Trinity, Leeds Trinity Shopping Centre, White Rose Shopping Centre. So quite diverse, and we've also been into other schools and businesses and things to talk to them. So that's a big part of what we do, is actually breaking down the myths of what it means to be autistic and providing education and making places more accessible.
Brilliant. That's wonderful. As we said, as you probably know, we involve with quite a lot of businesses in general. So if there's anything we can do to help, please let us know. We can have a chat afterwards. I would imagine it's both challenging and rewarding what you do.
Yeah, I think often when I tell people what we do, and even when I'm sort of a sport worker, people say, "Oh, that must be really stressful," but it's not. The people who we support who sort of provide that stress. I think it comes from wanting to get it right for people.
Yeah.
But also because autism's not, everybody's heard of it, but it's not actually very well understood. So I think a lot of people find it difficult to understand because it's a complex thing to understand and get your head round. So there are a lot of massive barriers really for autistic people to have to overcome to succeed, and a lot of that doesn't come from their autism. I think at the moment, in the position I'm in at the moment as well, because it's all one-to-one support, it's really complex. So we've got a big staff team. We support about 65 people. We've got about 100 staff, so it's takes quite a lot of coordinating, but I love it. I absolutely love my job.
Brilliant. That's great. Great to hear. So could you tell us a little bit about your background, and how you ended up here?
Yeah, so by accident. I left school. I was playing in bands and stuff, and I wanted to be a professional musician, of course, as a teenager, as you do.
Yep.
I thought I really need to have a backup plan here. So my mate says to me, why don't you do nursing? Because he were a nurse. And he said, I think you'd really like the mental health stuff.
Yeah.
So I went to volunteer to see if I liked working with mental health. I absolutely loved that. Applied to do nursing, got in at Leeds. So I'm from Doncaster originally, so that brought me over to Leeds, where I've stayed. Did 3 years of that. Started really struggling with it, to be honest, and ended up having to retake my final year. And it turned out that I had a post-viral type illness, which I was ill with for about a year. And then when I recovered and started, that sort of caused me to reevaluate things. And when I recovered, I thought, I don't want to be a mental health nurse. I didn't like there's a lot of injustices in the system back then.
Right. Yeah.
And you didn't. It's huge, isn't it? The NHS. So I didn't really feel at that time like I had a voice in there to really help people. So worked in various different sort of care settings to get sort of back into work. Did stints in learning disabilities, elderly care and dementia, some physical disability stuff, all sorts of different sort of care settings. Thought I want something a bit more. So we're doing agency work, and I wanted some more security, really. So I signed up with an agency. I said I don't want to be bitting and bobbing, doing temping all over the place. I want to go somewhere where I can sort of develop and progress. First job they sent me on was 2 weeks at Leeds Autism Services, and I absolutely loved it straight away. And then 2 weeks came to an end. Was offered a permanent support worker position, and I've been there ever since, working in various roles, basically, till I ended up in the chief executive role about 4 years ago.
Brilliant.
So, but I just found my niche with autism, and it's something just clicked. I just got it, and thought I can really help these people. So
that's wonderful to hear. That's great. So looking at your journey through Leeds Autism Services and you know, as an organisation as well as you as an individual, what do you say some of the biggest issues you've had to overcome
over time, over all that period? Ooh. There's been some big ones. I mean, when I very first started there, it used to be a Christian organisation. It was really small, so it had a real cottage industry feel to it.
Yeah.
But it didn't sit well with me because I'd come from a nursing and care background, and there were no record keeping back then, no risk assessments.
Right.
I sort of went. The first day, it was like, right, you're working with these two guys. They're doing art, and it was like that was kind of my induction, and it were. So I found that difficult. I loved the people, and I loved who were working, sort of, who were supporting and everything. And I got on really well with the staff as well. They were lovely. It was just not what I was used to. So that was quite difficult for me. I used to keep records. Like, I can't do this and not keep records. I've got to keep my own records in case anything happens. And then we got a new manager in, Karen. She was the outgoing chief executive before me, and she was from a similar background to me, not the nursing but the care side of stuff. So she was very much aligned to sort of my way of thinking, and started making some quite big changes, which was nice, but it was difficult. And I mean, there's been a number of difficulties because it was very small. and set up like almost a cottage industry type charity. When I started getting into management positions, I like to know the ins and outs of everything and how things were set up and how things work, and I just like to have it in there. And there were information dating back towards before my time and Karen's time that I just couldn't. We were doing stuff as an organisation, and neither of us knew why.
Right.
We were doing it like this, and no one
Yep.
could really tell us. So that was a big challenge, and we're still sort of sorting through a lot of those legacy issues now.
Wow.
I suppose. We also had a residential service, which was, yeah. I mean, the guys who live there are great. The staff who work there were lovely, but the building was big, old, antiquated, didn't lend itself to modern sort of care services at all. So we made the decision, probably about 7 or 8 years ago, actually, that we were going to have to move everybody out of there.
Right.
And yeah, that's been a huge challenge, and that service closed in January this year.
Right.
Into January this year.
Goodness.
So when I came into position, I was like, right, we're doing this now. We're tackling that house.
Yep.
It took us 4 years and a pandemic to get there. But we got there. The guys are settled in the new homes. There's a new care provider for various complex reasons. But yeah, they're all right, and they're in nice modern houses, and they've been well cared for. So all's well that end well, and they still attend our services. So for the most part. So, but that were a massive challenge. I suppose the big ongoing challenge is always developing your culture and maintaining your culture, yes. and because our culture's our biggest selling point. It's why we're successful at what we do. It's because the staff who sort of our colleagues they're passionate and caring, and you can't buy that. So that's something you've really got to nurture. We're very lucky because we have got a really good team. So
it's great. I mean, culture should be the core of every great organisation, in my opinion. It's, when we understand our values and our purpose, then we attract the right people to us, and they stay for a long time because they get it, they're aligned, and that's wonderful. So what would you say are some of the biggest things you've learned as you've developed your career?
Ooh. so many. I think I'm a really keen learner. I couldn't. I think the day that I feel like I know everything is the day it's time to pack in and go elsewhere.
Yeah.
So I'm an absolute avid learner. I think the biggest learnings are what I've learned about myself, to be honest.
Yep.
I used to be quite shy, which I am in a way, but not in a business setting, really.
Yeah, brilliant.
And not particularly confident. I don't think I'm overconfident now. And again, if I thought I knew everything, I'd have to give me head a shake and decide I'd like to do something else. But yeah, that confidence. I think the learning of one of the most difficult lessons was when I sort of started getting into staff management and having to deal with difficult situations with people.
Yeah.
If you've got staff who you have to dismiss for one reason or another, and it's making difficult decisions for the right reasons, I think was one of my biggest areas of learning.
Yeah.
And something where I had to really step outside my comfort zone and sort of make myself do it. But again, that stepping outside your comfort zone is so important for your personal development. If I'm asked to do things which I'm uncomfortable doing, I will often accept. Anyway, I wouldn't have dreamt of doing something like this probably 5 years ago even. So,
Brilliant.
So yeah, I'm always quite happy to take steps outside my comfort zone.
Well, we always say growth only happens really outside your comfort zone. You know, we only grow and change when we're outside our comfort zone, not in it. And
well, it does, doesn't it? Otherwise, you're just in your bubble.
Absolutely. So we're a coaching organisation, Pete. You may be aware, and I'm just keen to know what who would be some of the best coaches you've ever worked with, whether that's business, life, sports.
Oh, do you know what? This probably sounds really I don't know what the word is. Definitely not cliche, but the people who I've learnt most about myself are the guys who we support.
Wow. Yes.
And they and how they have sort of made me reevaluate myself and my challenges and my barriers, because it puts things into so much perspective when you think about some of the challenges they've had to overcome. And do overcome on a daily basis. Not coaches, but have definitely taught me a lot, and how I think about things, and how I think about other people, and sort of how I manage people. From a coaching point of view, I've already mentioned her, but Karen, I don't think I'd be here today if it wasn't for Karen Denson, because she saw something in me that I don't think other people did at the time, and kind of took the chance, and we worked so closely together, and it was just a very symbiotic management team, really. And when she left sort of 4 years ago, I think when she left, it was like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? Can I do that sort of managing the relationship side of things that she does? And thankfully, yes, a lot of the sort of stuff that I've learned from her, I hope has left me with those skills. We've got a really good management team and senior management team in place now.
Brilliant.
So I think something must have rubbed off.
Yeah, wonderful. That's great to hear.
You know, there's other people in your life, you know, family and friends and things like that who on the personal side set you straight from time to time, and tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. And there are loads of them.
Yeah, brilliant.
So not name them here, but yeah.
No, that's great. It is a great one about coaching. You know, it's something I love. It is people need to hear things they don't always want to hear, and it's being able to do it in a respectful and helpful manner. That's really, really key. I'd love to collect sort of quotes and sayings that people use on a regular basis. So is there any sort of favourite quotes or sayings that you fall back on in difficult or challenging times?
Oh, do you know? It's really hard not to just come up with autism quotes, because they tend to be my favourite one.
Brilliant.
And I've got two of them.
Great.
That I trot out at any given opportunity. And probably my number one favourite is, it's actually from an autistic American blogger, but she says that the real difference between high and low functioning autism is that if you're low functioning, your abilities are ignored, and if you're high functioning, your difficulties are ignored.
Ooh.
And that is just so true.
Oh, yeah.
People we work with.
Yeah.
And one of my others is Temple Grandin, who's a professor in animal psychology, but she's autistic and writes about experiences of being autistic and gives talks and stuff. And she's got a great one that's something along the lines of, if it wasn't for the autistic gene, we'd still all be stood round in caves socialising. And I absolutely love that.
Brilliant. Love
I'm
that.
sorry, not business ones.
No, brilliant.
But,
Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
pertinent to our business.
Yes, yeah, and really interesting, because really interesting. And you mentioned you when we talk about learning, you've learnt most of your learning a lot about yourself. Is there any others that come to mind?
Oh, don't be afraid of making mistakes. This is one I trot out regularly when I'm coaching and supervising people. We even actually have it in the training. That I put it in the training. I deliver the autism training for new staff coming in, and it's actually in there, written on the slides. Be yourself and don't be afraid to make mistakes, because most of our learning doesn't come from the stuff that we get right. It's from the stuff that goes wrong. It's great when we get it right, but
absolutely.
Yeah, sometimes you'll take a punt and get it right, and it's like, oh, it worked, that's all right. But actually, the real learning often comes from our mistakes. So
absolutely, and as you say, being comfortable to do that. I think it was Nelson Mandela said, "I never lose. I either win or learn." And
that's a good one. You see, I'll have to clock that one.
Yeah, please, you're welcome to it. I do like that one. And somebody when I was interviewing the other week said, and I loved it, and she said, we've come through 100% of our crises so far. I thought, yeah, cool, yeah. We'll survive. That's right. We've survived 100% of our crises so far, and it's bang on, isn't it? It's like it's crises are there to challenge us, and challenges are there to help us grow, and without them, we don't develop. So
no, it's been very. The whole pandemic stuff has been a enormous challenge, but a huge learning experience, and that in a lot of ways, a lot of the issues that we were struggling with, or thought we were struggling with before the pandemic, suddenly came into perspective, and everyone leapt into action mode. And I just think it gave everyone such a feeling of, if we can do this, we can do anything. And that sort of carried through. Now everything's starting to go back to normal, and if people are sort of, oh, I'm worried about this, or can we really do this? It's like, look at what we've achieved in the last 2 years during a pandemic. If we can
100%.
In the face of what we're going off, we're all right. We can do all right. So brilliant.
Completely agree. There's so many amazing things have happened over the last 2 years. We, in what seemed, right at the start, like nobody really knew what it meant, whether we get through it or not. And as you say, having done it, it's really important every now and again just to look back and see how far we've come. I think somebody said that I only look back to see how far I've come, which I like. Yeah,
it is good to do. I often ask people because it's kind of part of my job, because I do a lot of the analytical stuff, for developing strategies and things like that. So I'm forced to look back quite a lot by the nature of my job. And a lot of the staff, the support staff in particularly, they're not forced to. And I will often sort of say to people, just go back and look at what you've done. Look at where that person was 2 years ago compared to where they are now, and you're part of that. And that usually seems helpful.
Brilliant. Love it. Absolutely love it. So taking a step back and looking forward, what do you see? What's the future look like? And what challenges might you face, if any?
Uh, what does the future look like? A lot of growth, I think, by the looks of it. It's a funny sort of business landscape we're operating at the moment, because there are incredible pressures on social care, as most people will be well aware of.
Yep.
But again, it's often crisis brings about positive change. So what we've got set against a lack of money in the system is enormous growth in need for organisations like ours.
Yep.
So we're looking at the moment how we're going to manage that and actually meet that need, because one of the biggest risks, I think, is us not being able to meet that need and kind of losing our reputation.
Yes.
The local authority are thankfully of the same mind, and what they're doing at the moment, and a lot of local authorities are doing, is something called left shift, where they're looking at value purchasing rather than cost purchasing. So they're looking at how health and social care and criminal justice and education all actually fit together.
Yeah.
And how money can be better utilised through sort of more joined up working and things like that. That puts us in a really good position, I think, because we are, for a lot of years, we've described ourselves as a high value organisation. So because of the huge staffing ratios that I don't think there's anyone else in the city provides one-to-one for everyone who the support. So it is relatively expensive.
Yeah.
But it is really good value because it takes pressures off of a lot of other services.
Yes.
So we're preparing for growth, putting a lot of we had quite a good year last year financially, so we're looking at investing quite a bit of that surplus into infrastructure.
Great.
And what I would do in sort of the 2 years leading up to the pandemic was actually getting all the management and organisational structure right.
Yeah.
But that hadn't really had a chance to bed in because of the pandemic. It kind of changed everybody's roles a bit. So we're bedding all that in, and we're putting all the digital infrastructure in, making sure that all the we're getting rid of paper records and things like that.
Yep. And
just really making sure we've got very strong foundations to build on in the next 5 years, because we need a bigger building, hopefully with some land, and looking at providing other commission services where there are shortfalls and specialist provision in the city. So really exciting for us. I think a lot of the team are quite excited about the future, but this year it's really getting everything put in place so we're ready to go.
Brilliant. That was very exciting times. Absolutely amazing. And just, I'm keen to know what you would say to anybody that was thinking of going into business right now.
Nothing ventured, nothing gained, I think.
Brilliant.
I think do it. I don't know. I mean, it's kind of easy for me to sit and say just do it, but my experience, I came into business because of the support worker side of the job.
Yes. Yeah.
It was not to do with wanting more money or a bigger house or a fancy car or any of that. It was a passion for what I do. So I think if you've got an idea for a business, any kind of business, and you're passionate about it and you believe in it and you think you can make a difference in however way you want to make that difference, then go for it. If you're doing it for the right reasons, you will find a way to overcome your problems.
Brilliant. Absolutely love it. And if you started all over again, is there anything that you do differently yourself?
tempted to say just start from scratch. Because these legacy issues that we've had over the years have taken a lot of untangling. Yeah, go off and start again from scratch. Do you know what? I don't know. I haven't got any regrets. That's not to say I've not made mistakes. I've made some clangers, to be honest. I will probably make more. But as I said earlier, I've learned from them. It's developed me personally and professionally. I absolutely love what I do. I just so it's hard to think of going back to a younger me and advising me or changing anything. I think maybe when I first started, it might have been stick with it. You can do this. So you'll get there. But yeah, I wouldn't change a thing.
Brilliant. Wonderful. Well, Pete, thank you so much. That's been a real interesting journey through what you've achieved so far and what's going on with Leeds Autism Services. And really wish you the best of luck. As you say, you're obviously into a growth phase, and you're clearly doing some great stuff and providing great services. And long may that continue to grow.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Fingers crossed. I'll keep plugging at it.
Brilliant. Yeah, absolutely fantastic. Thank you.